Darrin, we've got cameras in front of us. Microphones in front of us is pretty normal.
Yep.
Cameras is not.
No.
Does it bother you at all?
No, it doesn't really bother me.
It's just the two of us, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've done TV stuff in a past life, at a past market, but it is still one of those things where you go into radio so people don't look at you while you're talking. And now
that's why I got it. And then they told me a few years ago, well, video's really coming. I'm like, what? No,
radio is audio,
just audio. But this is called 15 Minutes With. Titan Broadcasting presents 15 Minutes With, the pilot episode. And Darrin, you know what happens to pilots?
They crash and burn.
A lot of times they do. This one's going to be a success.
Okay, they get canceled. They get canceled 3 episodes in, is what happens if they're on Fox. All right.
Sometimes they do, yeah. And we hope to have community members and just folks that have got things to talk about that might interest others, events coming up, but just kind of, and maybe get to know a lot of our staff this way too. So Darrin Wright is the Mix Morning Show host, but was your first, tell me about your first radio job. I know you did news for a while, in not so long ago, in a very more divisive time.
Yeah.
And you didn't love it. I always have sympathy for news people.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, I actually got my start in like alt rock music.
Okay.
WLCA in Godfrey, Illinois, and then some overnights for KC 95 in St. Louis, and a lot of stuff.
You worked for KC?
It was basically babysitting. It was an overnight shift. It wasn't that big of a deal. I love KC though.
Did you understand the legendary studios you were in?
I absolutely understood. Grew up listening to KC 95.
That's so great. I have a shirt. I'll have to wear it like next week so you can see. I love it. The pig, right?
Yeah. But like most of my time, that was with another company called Emmis. They're no longer around.
Yeah.
They got bought by someone else. But KFTK in St. Louis was where I spent a lot of my time kind of learning the ropes. That's a talk station there. And my first time out on my own was at a talk station in Central Illinois. And for the bulk of my career since 2001 had been news until I got out of news in early 2022. And by out, I mean I straight up quit the business entirely. Because
got out of radio for a while.
I got out of radio because I was tired of news. And then Titan Broadcasting gave me a call just a few months after I stepped away, because I was at the point where I'm like, if I have to do news, I'm not doing radio anymore. And I got the opportunity to come here.
Started on the Bull?
Yeah, started on the Bull middays.
Okay.
On the Bull, and went from that to afternoon drive on the Bull. And then when Savannah, the former program director and morning show host for the Mix, decided that she was going to step away from radio, she spoke to me and said that she wanted me to take over the morning show gig and the program director gig, which has just been a blast.
You do a great job.
Thank you.
A great fit for the morning show.
Try to keep it as upbeat as possible.
Were you up early for the news anyway, so it wasn't too hard of transition?
I think maybe for like 3.5 years out of that entire career span, I didn't have morning shift. It was like a 9 to 5. But for the rest of that, my body is just hardwired now, where like I wake up at 3:30, it doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, sleeping in for me is like 6.
I did mornings for 14 years, so it's still in me.
Yeah.
It kind of never goes away.
And they always say you'll get used to it.
Yeah. No,
you don't.
You never do.
That's a lie.
You never do. And you go home and it's like 1:30. If you sit on the couch at 1:30 or 2 o'clock, you're done.
I will fall asleep.
You're done.
Yeah. And I try not to take naps because I'm not going to sleep at night if I take a nap. So it's really, the struggle is real, man.
Yeah. So you also have a podcast, and I know it's like everybody has change in their pocket. Everybody's got a
podcast.
Everybody's got a podcast, but you have a pretty successful podcast because of its longevity. You've built an audience.
Yeah.
And it's called the Geek Cave Podcast. What is it? Is it video games, movies, pop culture? What is the core issues on Geek Cave?
The mission statement is everyone's a geek for something.
Yeah.
Because everyone is a fan of something. That's really how we define it, is just what are you a super fan of?
Yeah.
But we've got 3 basic kind of formats that we look at: comic books, video games, and movies.
Right.
But that branches out to movies and TV. We have a new episode every week, every Wednesday. But the third Wednesday of the month is literally a hodgepodge. It can be anything. We've talked about classic rock. We've talked about classical music. We've talked about toys that people forgot about. We've talked about just this general hodgepodge. If you were born anytime between 1980 and the early 2000s, we've probably talked about something that meant a lot to your childhood.
Well, I know you have, I haven't known you that long, but have a pretty big heart. And there's once a year, you guys give back on that podcast, right?
Yeah.
Tell me, what is that? It's a marathon video game play.
Yeah, I'm wearing one of the shirts for it now. It's called Extra Life. It is a 24-hour video game marathon for Children's Miracle Network hospitals. Where we set up, we stream it online on twitch.tv, and we play video games for 24 hours, and we collect
straight.
Just 24 hours straight. This coming year is going to be different.
Do you alternate folks coming in?
We do have like shifts because it started with just me doing it for 24 hours, and after a while, you get the weird talk at about 3 or 4 in the morning.
Right.
But
it's not like you can't go to the bathroom or anything.
No.
Okay, good.
And we've been doing this for like 10 or 11 years, almost as long as the podcast has been around.
How much have you given?
I don't know about us personally, but I do know as an organization, Extra Life has raised more than like $100 million for CMN hospitals. And last year, I believe gamers brought in like $18 or $19 million.
That's pretty great. Once a year you do it?
Once a year. A year. It's like a nationwide effort. We've had several listeners who, not just podcast listeners, but people who listen to me on the radio who've come to me later and said, I started my own Extra Life team because you were talking about it and it was a good fit. And I got started in it personally because I lost a sister to pediatric cancer back in 1993. And when in Children's Miracle Network hospitals in St. Louis, they did a fantastic job. They did all they could. I truly believe they prolonged her life.
Yeah.
But as a result of that, when I saw that this was a fundraiser that connected one of my passions to another thing that I care deeply about, I had to get on board. And then a couple of the other people on the podcast, they've also had experiences with CMN hospitals. And as our podcast has grown, so has our team as a result. And we're incredibly grateful for all the support over the years and just to be a part of it.
How about when you get out of your own head, all your own worries, and concentrate on somebody else or some other cause? You feel better for sure.
Right. Well, that's a reason that on Mixed Mornings, every day at 6:50, we have a good news segment specifically to focus on good things people are doing in the world.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to find negative stuff.
Absolutely.
But when you take a moment to step back and see someone doing something good, it reminds you that there are good people in the world and that this world is a pretty cool place.
Talking about passions from around the St. Louis area, you love hockey.
Absolutely.
Why don't we have a hockey team and them playing over at the Memorial Auditorium? That'd be awesome.
I talked to Mayor Billups about that. Like the first time I met him, I'm like, "You guys need a hockey team."
What did he say?
He said, "Well, we're working on it."
Is there youth hockey? Is it big here?
No, right now, the closest we have is I think occasionally they have like kids hockey stuff when they get the synthetic ice out.
Yeah.
But the closest hockey around here is probably Coralville and the Quad Cities.
Yes.
Quad Cities, they've got the Storm. Coralville's got the Heartlanders, which is in the same league as a team I used to work really closely with back in when I was working in Fort Wayne, Indiana, the Comets.
Storm used to be the Mallards.
Storm used to be the Mallards,
Yes,
who were also in the same league as the Fort Wayne Comets, but now I think that league is, the Iowa Heartlanders. But actually grew up a baseball fan more than anything. Really got into football when the Rams were in St. Louis.
Hockey was never on TV when you and I were kids.
It was, but like local only, like local access. So like KPLR in St. Louis, they had Blues games.
Okay.
And my grandpa, he didn't even really care about hockey that much. He just put it on because he wanted to support the local teams. And so he'd just have it on in the background.
Nice. I'm sorry, did you say you played youth?
No, I didn't play youth. No, I can barely stand on skates. So, no, my youth sports were basketball and like a little bit of baseball, and that was it for me.
First hockey game you were in, you were hooked. You're like, this is
first hockey game I ever went to was a Nashville Predators game in Nashville, Tennessee.
Nice.
When I was, there was a small period in my career where I wasn't on air. I was doing production behind the scenes stuff.
Did you see Mike Fisher play?
I did.
Nice.
Yeah.
Carrie Underwood's husband.
Carrie Underwood's husband. Yeah, but I had had a friend who he had season tickets to the Preds. He kept asking me to go. Finally, I said okay, and then after that, it was like, because I love the Blues right now, but the Predators will always have a special place in my heart because they showed me how much fun hockey is.
Yeah. Do the Crazy Fanatics sit the closest to the glass? Is that where, if you're a hardcore?
It depends on the arena.
Yeah.
Because in Nashville, section 303 is the nosebleeds, right?
Okay.
But it is the loudest section in the building. And if you've ever been to like a pro soccer game where like the crowd has these like coordinated chants and stuff like that,
Right.
Nashville does that in section 303.
That's where it starts.
And it kind of like, spreads out from there. But it really depends on what team you're seeing, because Quad City, we sit pretty close to the glass, and it seems to emanate from there. Fort Wayne, it can emanate from kind of like the nosebleeds as well. So it depends on the fandom, really.
Yeah. From St. Louis, how much do you love Burlington? Are there similarities? What do you love about Burlington?
There's a lot about Burlington that reminds me of my hometown, which is Alton, Illinois, which is a really small town on the river.
Yeah.
About the same size as Burlington, bluffs, hiking trails, all that stuff. It really is very similar. So that was one thing that drew me. Also, in my career, we kind of got to the point where we were further and further out from family, where when I worked in Joplin, it was about a 6.5 hour drive. When we lived in Fort Wayne, it was about a 7.5 hour drive. Nashville, same thing. So being able to be within a couple hours of family is huge.
And of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you're just a couple hours away from, I think, like 3 hours from St. Louis.
Right.
Hour and a half from Coralville and, that area, a little over an hour from the Quad Cities, couple hours from Chicago. There's a lot to like about Burlington, where you get that small town, but stuff is within range if you want to go somewhere and do something a little bit bigger.
I make the drive from Galesburg every day, and in the summertime took a lot of walks, and I don't know how people do it it's a workout. You come back to work, you're like, okay,
this town is very, very hilly.
Yes, hilly. I always think the beautiful churches out here, there's a little cluster of them.
Yeah.
And how people are getting out of their cars on Sunday morning and walking up those hills and going to church, but they must.
The only time I'm worried about the hills is when, like, recently we had all that ice and snow and stuff.
Yes, LJ, our president,
I don't have a truck.
He warned me. He goes, you got to take your time. Maybe go a different street where the hills aren't. But
yeah, good luck with that downtown.
What? So you've been in radio for quite a while. Took a little break. Do you think young people are busting down the door to get into our industry?
I think that there's still a desire, to be in the field. I see people with a lot of passion to want to get into it, because when you think about the radio industry, is it as glamorous as TV? Not necessarily. No. But the radio has this strength and community that other industries don't. Yeah. For example, and I'm not tooting my own horn here, but 2011, the tornado that hit Joplin, Missouri, May 22nd. I had lived in Joplin for maybe 6 weeks before that storm hit.
Oh, my goodness.
It took out my apartment, but we were fine.
You were there amongst all that.
Yeah, but we were fine. We went to work. So when TV stations were inaccessible, when the newspaper was unavailable because they couldn't print, we were there.
Radio was there.
We were reporting. We got to the point where our stations were coordinating the disaster response. We had like police and fire agencies contacting us, asking us, what have your listeners told you? Asking us, can you get the word out about this or that? Because if you don't have electricity, but you have batteries, you can still get a radio to work. If you don't have electricity, but you have a car, you can still get a radio to work. They even make those crank radios. So when it comes to...
Everybody should have a weather radio.
Yeah, you really should. You really should. But when it comes to you absolutely need that information in a disaster. Like Landon is probably one of the best meteorologists I know, and he's on our staff.
Yeah.
And, that is something that I think will... Even in an age of Spotify and iTunes and all this digital stuff, there will always be a place for radio because of the reach that we have that you just cannot get.
It's the only thing I don't pay for.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I haven't been in broadcasting with a disaster like Joplin, but smaller ones and things that maybe power was out for 3 days because of an ice storm.
Right.
And you're
I've
right.
seen that too. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It comes together, and it feels good when the team comes together and they know they have to drop everything, and we're on the radio. Some of us might not go home for 12, 13, 15 hours.
I've done those. Yeah.
But we're there for people, and that's what's great. Yeah.
Right. And it really helps you kind of build that connection to the community. That's, even with, thank God we haven't had such a situation like that here.
Yeah.
But, the Burlington Strong effort, or, the other events that we do throughout the year where we raise Toys for Tots, where we either raise donations or we raise collect toys or whatever, being able to be a part of the community, like we're your neighbors, we're your friends, and we are here with you, doing life with you, it just says so much.
Yeah. Hey, that's 15 Minutes with Darrin Wright.
There you go.
The pilot episode of 15 Minutes with Titan Broadcasting, the Mix 107.3 mornings Monday through Friday, on Saturdays too?
Saturdays from 8 to noon.
Yeah. And then, of course, 1017 The Bull. Thanks for being with us. Catch us on the on video, and this will be audio too. I don't know how it's going to go, but it's our first episode. I think it went pretty good.
I think it went pretty good. We'll figure it out.
Thanks so much, Darrin.
Yeah, thank you.